even in the midst of really horrible devastation, you find that there is much good to be found in the human spirit. And that's something that we can all count on, I hope, moving forward. I want to welcome you all. First, it's dark. I'm going to have trouble reading. Do the best to try to read what I've got here. But I have I've set this up as a presentation primarily with the pictures that I have taken. Most of the photos here are photos that I took myself, although I'll bet. So virtually all the pictures that you will see are photos that I took myself, and some of them are indeed quite unpleasant. There are, when you're up front, there are two videos that I'm going to play. Now, some of you may have seen videos. There were many available that were made on October 7th and thereabouts. I have not watched really any of them except the one that I'm going to show you. And they're not graphic, but they are, I should say, somewhat. I'll explain more when I get there. If anybody feels like they don't want to see that, I'll let you know. You could or whatever. It's very short, a minute. I just want to be aware of that. I went to Israel. I flew with a group of the Israeli conservative movement that was sponsored by the Israeli conservative movement. Of course, I know the conservative movement around the world is from this Masort, which is a word that means traditional. Although if you're outside of America, Latin America, or in Israel or Europe, it's generally referred to as Masorti, not conservative. Although Israelis will use the term conservative because they know that that's what English speakers use generally. But this is a group of primarily rabbis, 30 of us, primarily rabbis from around the world, including many from the United States, a couple from Canada, also from, we had people on the trip from Mexico, from Argentina, a couple from Brazil. We had one from Germany, and we had two from England as well. And of course, and a handful of Israelis who joined us for the trip. And including, by the way, Rabbi Amy Levin, I recall, was the interim rabbi. Rabbi Levin, is now the president of the Israeli Masorti movement. So she's the head of the rabbis in Israel. So I was on the ground for a total of 62 hours, which is obviously not very much time, and it was really 2.5 days. The first, I was there with the group for the first 2 days. Third day, I actually, some of you may know that my son is now in Israel serving in the IDF. So I was able to, I actually ditched the group that day and went, rented a car and drove up north to the IDF. And I'll get to that. But our trip began Monday morning, November 6th. And this is Ben Gurion Airport. And as you can see, some of you might have seen this shot already. As you're entering the airport, you'll see that there are, this is from the point where you leave the gate car and you walk down to the area where you hit customs, and there are portraits of the hostages that are lining both sides of the pathway. This is our group walking down this. You can see there as you're walking. It's a very sort of striking tribute from the moment that you arrive. And we immediately went. And by the way, I just wanted to point this out. How many of us have been to Israel before? Raise your hand. Okay, that's a lot of us. Almost all of us. And which actually this is when we left. You can't see it because the print is too small. But there were so few flights. Basically, the only airlines that are flying right now in and out of Israel are the Israeli airlines. That is El Al, of course, and Arkia and Yisrael are two other smaller airlines. And it looks like a lot of flights there, but number one, that goes from midnight until about 6 o'clock the next day. that filling out those two screens. So nothing's moving very fast there. It was very, and many of them are code shares as well. So you'll see that there are 4 going to Moscow. And the airport was practically empty. It was very striking, even when we were leaving the airport. There are virtually no tourists in the country right now. As you all know, of course, Israel depends heavily on tourism. When we were leaving, even more striking as we were driving away from the airport, we saw that the place where all the airplanes that are coming in from elsewhere and then flying out again, there was nothing. It was empty. I'd never seen anything like that. It was very, very striking. Our first stop after we left the airport was the office of Sorti Olami, the international Sorti movement in Israel. It's not far from the airport. It's a nondescript office building. But we started off with a little ceremony there and sang the song Lu Yegi, which, lucky, if we have enough time, we'll come back to at the end and have the opportunity to sing together. But it's a song that by Naomi Shemer that is well known. There's a story that goes with it, but it is particularly appropriate at the time. And we heard here a speech by an Israeli general, retired general, whose name is Yair Golan, well known in Israel, not only for being a general and the commander of the Nachal brigade, he was also the commander of the Home Front Command, which is what I call the Department of Homeland Security. And he served in the government, not in the current government, but as the one before, as the deputy minister of finance, I believe. In Israel, in general, it's a small country and people know each other, and he was willing to come. He knew some people as he told his story, and he was very humble about it. What was interesting about his story is that on October 7th, when he first heard the news, he actually hopped in his car, drove south to see if he could save it. And we heard several such stories, humble stories of people who just they heard something was going on, they managed to get a few people into a car, bring them to safety. And this guy, he knew somebody who was there, and went and picked them up, and then he went and got 2 other people and stumbled across a couple more, and he came back with a full car and saved a few people that might have otherwise been murdered. So again, he was very humble. It was just I was just, okay, yes, I'm a general. I've served in the government, but I'm also just one guy who had and it was just sort of a reminder to all of us how there are so many of these stories that this day, that this period has included. He's also, by the way, just added point, he was one of the very outspoken retired generals regarding, prior to October 7th, you may remember there was a crisis in Israel and a lot of people protesting against the government. He is a well-known voice on the Israeli left. We don't think of generals as being on the left, but he one of the things that he was known for prior to October 7th, speaking out against the Netanyahu government. And one of the things he talked with, he took us back to before October 7th, to say, again, taking a dig at the current government, he said, racism solves nothing. I use the term. Just want to share that with you. After we were there at the Masorti offices, we went to there's another group there's a group that was formed by retired or basically reserve soldiers, and this is a group that I mentioned for those of you who heard my sermon on Yom Kippur at Kol Nidre, a group called Achim Laneshek, brothers in arms. And Achim Laneshek was formed by different groups of former commanders, or reserve soldiers, who put together in the context of protests over the last year a kind of a volunteer brigade that did lots of things to help out with the various protests in Israel. And it so happened that once October 7th happened, that they had this sort of volunteer infrastructure in place that enabled them to do lots of things the government was not able to do. And in particular, what they are doing now is distributing supplies to people in need all over. And so these are some of the supplies that we brought, including, I think, perhaps the big black duffel bag in the middle was the one that I schlepped from Pittsburgh. It's filled up with a bunch of stuff that I bought at Costco, thermal socks and underwear and shirts that there are people that need, most Israelis don't have warm clothing, and particularly if they had to flee their home in a hurry, as many did, they probably didn't bring their warm clothing with them. So those are supplies that are now being distributed to those in need. So this is so Achim Leneshek, that translates as brothers in arms, has created a couple of what are called Chadrei Hamalim. It's basically a location that means literally a war room. It's not what you think when you think of war room in English. This is their distribution points for. Now, it's worth noting that there are something around 125,000 internally displaced in Israel. Been evacuated. Now, people have been evacuated. And in fact, many of them were staying in my hotel. In fact, people in our hotel filled with people from Tehran, which you may know is a town that's very close to Gaza. That city was small city was evacuated, and many of those people were in my hotel in Jerusalem. And those people need stuff. And so what Achim Leneshek has done is create these distribution centers that are filled. And this is actually at the bottom of a parking garage in an otherwise nondescript office building in Tel Aviv, and it's just filled with stuff. So you can see like those plastic chairs there, and you can see you can't really try to see what's there, but okay, it says in Hebrew Yeladim there. Children's clothes. There's food. There are cribs. There are games and toys. There's a section on the left. Blankets, toys. There's actually even a section with food for pets, because again, that's something that that eat food as well, or something they told us they added later. Like I said, toys, housewares, again, like those are all board games. Because remember that many of these evacuated kids, they can't go to school. They don't have anything to do all day. So they need things, housewares. Like I said, this is us davening mincha outside the building. And then from there, so that's what happened with Brothers in Arms. They told us their story about how they got together. It's interesting, although so important to this moment. So the next place we went was to the headquarters in Tel Aviv, where that is sort of the central command for the families of hostages for their political activity. And there are a couple of folks speaking to us there, but in particular, there's a woman who's seated who's wearing a gray shirt. That woman is Naama Levy. And she spoke to us. She's the mother of Naama Levy. Her name is Ayelet Shachar. And Naama Levy was one of the is still to this, as far as we know, a hostage in Gaza right now. And she told us her story. And I'll show you the video in a moment. But they shared this video with us. Like I said, it was one of the only videos that I've seen from that day. But it was, I think it took a lot for her to be able to tell this story. She told us in the course of this that she gave one interview to a media outlet early on, but she didn't really want it. She didn't like talking. I think you can understand that. Her daughter is 19 years old. And she basically told us about her daughter. And, and she felt that was a good thing for her. She got very animated and she was pleased to talk about her daughter. She mentioned that she had a high school concentration in diplomacy. She had been involved in Noam, which is the youth group of the Masorti movement. It's sort of USY. She had also been involved, the daughter had also been involved in a youth program called Hands of Peace, which brought Jews and Arabs together for dialogue, and even gone on a trip to San Diego for that dialogue that took place there. The daughter had also volunteered in the kindergarten for African refugee children. And what she wanted us to understand is that she said she wanted she hopes that she knows, that her daughter knows that we are trying. Right? Her daughter can't possibly know what's going on, but I'm sure they're sharing news with them, with the hostages. But she said, I hope that she knows that we are trying everything we can to bring them back. And she also said, I don't know what to do in this circumstance because the physician, the mother, but nothing in my training or in my history has prepared me for this moment. I'm sure we can all imagine, or perhaps not even imagine what that could possibly be like. The way that she found out that her daughter was kidnapped was that on that morning of the 7th, sirens, you may know, went off around 6:30 a.m. In the area, and she didn't know what was going on, but she soon got a call from her ex-husband, that is the kidnapped daughter's father, who sent her a video. Briefly, but I'm gonna second. Online, are you folks able to see you and hear what's going on? Okay, good. You can somebody give a thumbs up. All right, so I'm going to share. I'm going to play this video, and it is brief. As I said, it is not graphic, but it is disturbing. This is a video that was taken by Hamas fighters in Gaza, and what you're going to see is Nama Levy being from a truck and then put back into the truck again. So again, I'm sorry to have to share that. I wanted to what this woman told us, what her mother, Ayala, was going through. She said she was not able to watch. She said she saw some of that. But I'm going to go back to photos. So I spoke with her briefly just to again offer some words of comfort, although as I'm sure you know, there aren't really words of comfort that can be offered. I'm not sure what the pool now is. Maybe there have been about 50 released so far. But I think 50 over the first 4 days, and there will probably be 10 more today of the Israelis that say that I well, and her Nama has not. Her name is not yet. I should let all of you know, by the way, my son's mother, within Give, her one of her best friends was taken along with her 12-year-old daughter, and they were both through second day. So a little bit of good news. I'm actually going to call her tomorrow to find out if she's heard anything from her. I can't imagine what these. Basically, what Ayala's mother told us is that that's all that she has. She knows what she heard that morning, and then nothing, and then only what they have is just this so we say activism together, gather with other hostage families together. Some of you may know that they've been lobbying the Israeli government quite hard for the release. I'm sure that one of the reasons that this hostage release happened was because of the activism of folks like Ayala. But she said, really, after telling us about her daughter, nothing else. I'm hoping that she'll come home. But I have nothing more than an envelope, and she's trying to get other children, and she's trying to go about her life as best she can. And she said, I don't need anything but to have her. So then from there, I know I'm talking a lot. So from there, we went to what has become known as Kara, the hostage square. It's actually been the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. And it's also adjacent to the where the Tel Aviv Opera is as well, performs as well. It's this square, and this has become sort of the center of hostage activism, shall we say, and also just a gathering spot, not only for the families, but also for many people who just need to be around other people. And one of the things that happens, where I'll show you some of the tributes and installations there in a moment. One of the things that happens at this square every evening at 5 o'clock is that the Masorti movement leads a kind of a service, a prayer service, and different rabbis who come here. And they brought us here as a group on this Monday evening, and we did that. And in fact, so this is what our gathering kind of looked like. It's hard to tell, but it was just hundreds of people standing around, because as soon as we started talking, then people gathered. It's a time when people feel like they need to gather and be with each other. And other people. They're all sorts of people. So I no, this is my group. So you other people that gathered around. No. Those are just for wandering through the square. There's the Tel Aviv municipality has put up this stage with music, like playing somber, like groups playing somber music. And like I said, of these tributes, I was asked to speak about, they son serving. I was actually the only one. The only one of the non-Israelis, the child army. And so they asked me to say a few words. So this is the one with my Rabbi Baker, who is the Israeli rabbi. Is now the dean of rabbinical school at like I said, it was on every evening. So you all know about this tribute now, which has been installed in many places around the world, including in Pittsburgh. It's something similar. This is a Shabbat table that's made up with 240 spots. Actually, when I was speaking at that service, I said 240 Hebrew, and a gentleman who was standing there in the crowd corrected me and said 243. Just to make sure that, remember that, of course, not only in Jewish tradition, but also in the Israeli mind, redeeming captives, getting the hostages back is something that's very, very, very. And so you can see people are just milling about all the names of the hostages are on each place setting. Another kind of tribute you might have seen the most recent Chronicle. They printed one of the just more of them. We're going to get better there. So still on time of Haita, and some of them these little things like. And throughout this square, you have again all sorts of other types of tributes. These are just messages that they're decorating this wall with. Again, the table, that's what the place settings look like. I don't know if they're, I don't know if they're putting out fresh fella every day, but probably that way. Here, flowers. I mean, I think that these are just independent Israeli artists who have put together these tributes. In addition to the Shabbat table, there's also a there's there are kind of origami shaped things. Pretty. There's a musical. I said there was a musical performing there. You see the stage, and again all sorts of other signs and going about. It's a very sort of reflective. You get the sense of people. Again, people want to connect. And in particular, at this time, they want another to be doing 243 shares. So after that, after we left Square, I forgot to bring their T-shirt that I bought there. The few people in America have original Square there. So we stayed at a hotel in Jerusalem that, as I said, was filled with these families from Sderot. What you'll see, and this is in the hotel lobby, is a tribute to the hostages in the situation. You can see sort of the bottom there. And in this hotel, there were, of course, there were just kids everywhere. Remember, these whole families. They've been evacuated. They've been, the Israeli government has put them in different, wherever they can put them, hotels around the country. And so I saw many families who were just kids. Others of all them reservists. So that's a huge number of people. And the kids are just playing around. They're running through I mean, it's very exciting because there's a lot of noise, running through the hallways, playing with each other. And for kids, it's sort of like, well, it's kind of exciting around a hotel. So exciting after. But this is just thing that I found in the hotel there. A schedule for the week of activities for kids at the time. I'm told that also, remember these kids, while many kids have gone back home, the 125,000 odd families who are displaced in Israel, they can't go to school because there isn't room for them, and and all those. I think some of you know that there are a few families who actually relocated to Pittsburgh and some of the education programs. But some of these families have put together basically makeshift schools to give the kids something to do during the day and also make sure that they're keeping up with their education. It's not necessarily you'll see this phrase "Yachad Nenateach" or "Yachad Nenateach." That means together we will be victorious. You'll see that all over the country. Big screens in Tel Aviv and these kinds of these posters everywhere. It's just something, and it's very curious because some of that life goes on in yourself. And if you listen to the radio and you hear advertisements, advertisements go on too, even in times of war. And every single one, they sort of try to take the edge off the fact that advertisement by saying "Yachad Nenateach." It's just something you feel constantly over and over and over everywhere you go. So I'm going to move on to day 2. So day 2 was actually much harder. Worth noting, by the way, that we were instructed wherever we went, because there were still rockets at the time. There were still rockets flying into Israel. Right now, there are not because of the temporary ceasefire. We were told wherever we go, make sure you know where the safe room is. And thank God there are safe rooms all over Israel. Hamas, of course, is not built safe rooms for their population. One reason that the body count is so high inside Gaza, of course, is because they have no safe room. Hamas spent their money on tunnels. So on the second day, we loaded up the bus, picked up some equipment, in particular the bulletproof vests and the helmets. We were all issued bulletproof vests and helmets. And we were actually asked to sign a form, a legal form from the IDF in English that specified, and I remember thinking, I can't believe I'm signing this, because what it basically said was, please know that you are entering a war zone, and that, I'm paraphrasing the legal language here, but it said more or less, war is a real thing. You may be injured or even killed. And please note, the Israel Defense Forces cannot protect you, nor are they responsible, should something happen. So I did sign that form, and I thought, I'm not going to tell my wife. But I did sign the form, and here we all are with our helmets on. You can actually see me that I did not take this photo, but I'm at the back of the bus there, trying to hear what our guide here up front, who's talking, is a spokesperson for the Israel police region, and he is the one who is tasked with bringing folks into this area, which, by the way, you might hear referred to in English as the Gaza envelope, or in Hebrew, Otef Aza. It's the area. I don't remember how many miles. It's a certain number of miles from the Gaza border, the area that's been evacuated. So there I am. You've probably already seen this. It's funny, but of course it's curious. Now, thank God, actually, while I was there, I did not hear any sirens. Places where I was not when I was there. So here we are, actually looking at. Went to one of the kibbutz that was heavily impacted. It was Kfar Aza, and Kfar Aza is a kibbutz of about 1,000 people. I think the number is 58 were killed from that. And about 30. And as you'll see in a moment, you can actually there is at the edge of the kibbutz there's some agricultural land and land. It's about I think 2 kilometers. The edge is from Gaza. So here's a spokesperson again. Now, the area, the pictures of destruction that you're about to see is from the area where the terrorists who entered Israel. It's at the point of the kibbutz that's closest to Gaza, and there was a weak point in the fence, and they sort of bashed through, and so the buildings that you're about to see are all right in that area. So for all the time that terrorists, and by the way, as well, looters, not just Hamas people, but also just ordinary Gazan citizens also came in and took stuff and broke stuff and presumably took hostages as well. One of the challenges with hostages is that Hamas doesn't have. We might be with Palestinian jihad. We might just be with individuals who took the initiative. But what you'll see here as we're walking through is just absolute destruction. In addition to bullet holes on the side of this building, and of course it's blackened, but because they set things on fire. You'll see outside of each building there's little codes that indicate that this area was cleared. To count, if there were bodies found inside. I was told, by the way, also that when first Israeli troops arrived, you were able to take it back. All of it, the ground there were dead people everywhere. When we were there, getting blood or whatever, because there's an organization that cleans all that stuff up. However, it is worth noting that you can still smell the real thing. So this is a place where prior to October 7th, it was making lived. And as you can see, everything's trashed. Vehicles were smashed in the sides of these buildings. They were set on fire. You can't even imagine the level of destruction. It's hard to believe. You might have seen pictures in the last day or two of Elon Musk touring with some of the terrorists, by the way, actually, the estimate is that 80% of those who were killed were in something like this were actually tortured first. Some of them were sort of shot. They would kill one person, family member, and then wait a little while and have food. They drank beer. They went into the fridge. They helped themselves, and then they would kill somebody else. One of the stories we heard. So there's an area. construction. Yeah, little, that's a bathroom. You know, and you think, why bother to burn the bathroom? Why? But then there's this little parking area right outside, again, closer to the fence. Actually, can't really see here, but beyond these cars, that gap in the trees, there is a fence that is open right now, and buildings that are far in the distance. That's Gaza. So that's where the terrorists came in. And these cars were just set on fire, and smashed up. By the way, so in this picture, in the upper left corner, you see there's a tree, not the one in the middle right, but the far left, there's a tree there, and that's actually an orange tree. And if you look at this orange tree, maybe hard to see from where you are, but all the oranges are burned on one side. So it's across a little road that's probably 12 feet or something. But the heat from the burning cars is hot that it's burned. At this place where here's our spokesman standing and chatting there for a minute, and a woman came by, a woman that I found out, she didn't give her name, but she didn't want us to take pictures of her. But later we saw an article that she quoted in the Israeli press. Her name was Ov Tuch, and she's a member of Azad. It was the first time that she'd been back in a month. This is exactly a month later. It's on now. So full month. And while you all were voting here in America, I was doing this. And she saw this group here, and somebody asked her a question. She said, "Listen, I'll tell you my story, a little of my story. But you can't quote me or can't take pictures of me. Enough of that. I don't want to stop. I don't want to get press. I don't want." And more or less what she said was, well, both of her parents were killed, and her brother, I guess, survived, but had been hiding under a bed for 7 hours. By the way, in a pool of his mother's blood, in one of these buildings. And she did something which just stuck with me like nothing else, which is that she pointed to the different buildings around. She said, "Okay, over here in this one, that person's dead, and this person's a hostage, and this one's still missing, and that person's dead, and that person's dead." And it was kind of like so heartbreaking. She was many kibbutzim, by the way, you should know, are known for their leftist politics. They don't tend to vote to the right in Israel. Many of them are interested in coexistence and the two-state solution and finding an equitable solution for the Palestinian people. This woman who described herself as I think left voter, who used to believe in coexistence, said to me, "After what I've experienced, I do not think that coexistence is possible, and I don't even think that we can live with those people there, kilometers away from us." She didn't say whether or not they're moving back to the kibbutz. I don't know if that's been decided yet. What's going on there, but she said, "We cannot live with those people there." She did not say, to her credit, she did not say kill them all. She couldn't bring herself to say that, but she said, I think we should just push them all into the north. Now, again, a bunch of rabbis look at each other thinking, that'll play in this case. But in any case, this is a woman who had survived this. There's no possible way that we can maintain this kind of existence with those people over there. And she kept apologizing. She kept saying, "I'm sorry to say this. I'm sorry. I know how this sounds. I can't believe I'm saying this myself. But we cannot live there. Push them into." Okay. I think worth noting that in addition to something else that they pointed out that some of the buildings were just fully burned, and there were people that were bodies were fully burned, but they were not identifiable. Come back to that in a minute. Or as you mentioned, the looters. The next place we went to is a small city called Ofakim. If you know anything about Israel, you know that Ofakim is the butt of many jokes. It's not a glamorous place. It's a place that's sort of not a humble city. And this gentleman right here, he's actually a former city councilman, but he's also city councilman of, he's also been a politician who served in the Knesset twice. He's an immigrant from Dagestan, or Republic, and he lives on this ordinary quiet street. Now, in this little neighborhood here, there were 17 people killed by Hamas terrorists. And on that morning, a group, basically a jeep with 6 Hamas terrorists came to this neighborhood and started shooting. He heard the noise, and because he's from the former Soviet Union, he recognized the sound of the rifle as being Kalashnikov, recognized the sound of the Kalashnikov rifle. And he knew something was very, very wrong. And of course, he said there were no police, no soldiers, nothing in sight. What was he able to do? He actually was able to a neighbor fight off these terrorists who had invaded their neighborhood they had pistols. And in fact, the neighbor had a this is actually a video of his neighbor, and so that's this person. So the neighbor is there, and he's waiting for something, because he knows that the terrorists are coming by. He's waiting. Guy, and he actually shot him. This is so again, yet another story of one person who was able to accomplish something. And that's out of the neighborhood. And the next place, so that was Ofakim. We went for lunch there at a cafe that was really grateful for business, because I get a lot of business right now. So this is a parking lot that is filled with the cars that were at the Nova. As you may know, there were 364 young people who were killed. 364 people. Actually, I just heard this evening on NPR, maybe a story. A well-known Israeli DJ put on a concert there at this place today, not to people, but to pictures of NPR covered this. But there were 364 killed, at least 40 taken hostage from the festival. A festival, by the way, which was billed as being about friends, love, and freedom. So they asked us to stroll around this parking lot, and you'll see that all of the cars are terribly damaged. Most of the windows are shot out. You can see that somebody just literally shot at whoever was sitting in this car. Some of them are burned. Many of them have actually food strewn about inside because it's just left over. I saw a stroller in one. Just unimaginable destruction, melted cars. I don't even know. You see how in this case, those cars, they've had the windshield. I imagine this must have been people eating on it. People were probably hiding in their cars. I'm guessing. I don't know. That's what I was assuming was going on here. Many of them, this is like kind of a festival where you camp out. So many people were actually camping, and probably they're in tents or whatever. And they think, well, what's the only place I can go? And I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. They ran into their cars. They were attacked. And probably a blood stain on there. There's some brownies, portholes, and many holes. Right there. Okay. From there, we went to the army base. Now, I don't have pictures of war, but this army base, which is called Shura, is where the Israeli, where the chief rabbinate of the army. So Israel has, we don't have chief rabbinates in America, thank God, but Israel does, and the army has its own rabbinic structure. And it so happens that at this location is where the morgue is. Now, generally, this morgue does not profit more than 1 or 2 people. But but on the days following October 7th, they had to process about 1,200. And in fact, I don't have copies of the mortgage. I didn't want to. They explained the process of trying to get fingerprint evidence, trying to get if that didn't work, then their DNA. Dental records were second. In some cases, teeth were not available, so they had to go to DNA as well. I don't even know if they succeeded in identifying. There may be some as they have identified, but I believe an ongoing process. When we were there, they were not. They were processing work, but not. Body. One of the things that you see the refrigerated trucks, many refrigerated trailer trucks that were parked there because they had to people while they were and they one of the person that took us around told us about that this sort of it was like a mass impossible to comprehend. It was very hard. They had to go through severed body parts. He said, they would open a trailer that had bodies collected, and an arm would fall out, and a body without a head. Horrible things. So after that visit, though, they showed us something which was kind of surprising. We see these two guys walking out with secret cars. It has nothing to do with October 7th. Just a little piece of what you might call good news. Is that this one of the things that happened at this center of the Army Ravenite is that they have a bunch of Sophrian scribes on staff, and they fix secret talk. And this guy posted basically, this is probably the biggest arm project because there, I don't know how many are in there, but you can see there are a lot of secret Torah. They're all in states of disrepair, and they're being prepared. And they one of the things they do is they process these and they send them back out. So it was sort of like, okay, here's a nice little thing to show you after. So that was pretty much the end of the long day. Earned the vest and the helmet, and we went back to the hotel again. The next day, I'm not in this photo. This is a picture of the group with Israeli President Isaac Herzog, seated there in the middle with his wife to his left. And they went, he spoke, and I actually was not disappointed to miss the day with politicians because, as I said earlier, I rented a car. It so happened that my son, who is serving as a medic at a position at the North Kiryat Shmona, where he, by the way, basically their job is to return fire when his fires run. Oh, it's still going on up north. I don't know that there's a fire up north. I don't know if anyone heard that. I haven't heard whether or not people are still firing rockets. Even they might be, because the ceasefire is only with Hamas. That they would abide by the ceasefire. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens moving forward. But he's still up there, and he's actually grateful because he was unemployed, and now the army pays. I can think about this. Not only are there no tourists in Israel, not only are lots and lots of businesses and offices not functioning, I think causing a huge hit to the Israeli economy, but the 360,000 trucks that have been called up all have to pay. So you can imagine all the money that's going toward that right. But anyway, so it so happened that on that Wednesday, my son had leave from the army, and so he went back to kibbutz. I drove up and met him and was able to see him. And so here are a few good pictures here. That's in his apartment. He's actually he moved into a new apartment. New to him. Nothing so new. Yeah, but anyway, it's a nice apartment that he had before. And this is his girlfriend is a graphic designer. Who's actually serving as a graphic designer in the army right now, doing her mandatory. So she's that. I met the girlfriend briefly. Her name is Eden. My son's name is Leah. But we went and had a nice lunch. He was actually surprised because he'd been at this location up near Kiryat Shmona, but nothing like again, in the middle of nowhere. He's really not. He's not in a town or something. He's just in like I don't know, like a spot where they could set up a cannon. He didn't even know that restaurants were open. And I said, hey, let's go get lunch. I don't think anything. We drove into Tiberias. We had a lovely lunch at a place that we've been to before. It's quiet again. The guy was great service for there. And then I said, well, what do we do now? And he said, man, let's go for a hike. We went to Mount Gilboa, and we were able to hike around there. And if you've been up to Mount Gilboa, you know it's absolutely beautiful. That's looking down into the Jezreel Valley. Those are actually there's a bunch of ponds there to the left. They're aquaculture. I think it's fish. They grow fish there for another good shot. And then so after so we spent about 6 hours together. I had to head back to meet the rest of the group for the airport. But a funny thing happened. Some of you may know that in addition to all the thermal underwear and socks that I brought with me, I also brought some cards that were written by our teams, and some from our ELC, and some from CDS to give to Israeli soldiers. Now, I gave all mine over to the Achim Laneshek people on day one, and they leave them to distribute to the army. But then one of my colleagues, Rabbi Howard Stecker, who was actually my senior rabbi in Great Neck, he had some cards that he had made that he brought from Great Neck and Long Island. And he said, oh, I don't know what to do. Can you give them to your son? And maybe he can give them to his friends. And so I talked to him about it. He said, well, like a few of us. And so then I headed to the airport. I figured I'll find something at the airport, And, there's like 30 of them in my hand. And I didn't know what to do. But I had to thought, when you return right car, you have to put a gas station. So I stopped at a gas station. And it just so happens that in the next lane over, there's this police stand. And there are a couple of police and soldiers milling about the van as they're filling up. And I said, hey, listen, can you help me out here? I've got these cards for soldiers from America. And we want to make some, we're told that soldiers actually like receiving this. It's a nice thing to know that somebody in the world is. And the guy said, yeah, there's a Mishmar Gvul, a border patrol base right near here. Why don't you follow us? We'll take you there, and you give them to just folks at the base. So there I went and I met these lovely Israeli soldiers at the Mishmar Gvul. This is just at the guardhouse. They're all on guard duty. And I explained the situation. They're like, oh, that's great. Thank you so much. They're just thrilled to know that I'm a rabbi from America, and said, here, we'll give this to all our friends. So I snapped this picture. And they were really great. And that is actually really the end. I'll tell you what, we can, I thought it would be nice. I thought it would be nice to sort of conclude this and take some questions, but I wanted to sing the song that I think I invite you all to sing with me, a song that kind of marked this trip because we sang it on multiple occasions while we were there. And that song is Lu Yehi. And in order to do this, okay, I need a little help because while I'm playing guitar, I have to use the screen so that it's give it a quick version. Can I get a volunteer? Okay, Paul, come in. Mr. President. I hope you can see the words, or maybe you know the song. This is actually a song that is probably most famous for being not by the Beatles, although it was written by Naomi Shemer. She wrote the words to the melody of the Beatles song "Let It Be," and then was going to a festival where she was going to sing it, and she actually basically on the way to the festival came up with words came up with a melody of her own rather than to use the melody that was by Lennon. So if you know the song, please sing along. But it is a hopeful song that is also has a certain it's bittersweet. So yeah, you can. Okay. Thank you, that's all. So that is the conclusion. We realize what it's like now. If anybody has any questions that like, I know that in context there's a whole lot of information and probably give us a probably word after seeing that all of us.
About how the not like but my sense of in Israel is on
The question that we get to put on my computer is how could Hamas have gotten past Israel's fabulous, famous security? And I don't have any more information than any of us have read in Israeli newspapers. I do know that many Israelis are very, very, very angry at the government of Netanyahu because they feel that he took resources away from the Gaza border because they felt like they didn't have to worry about it. They were not concerned. They really thought, even though I've heard there was intelligence from Egypt, there was intelligence from other sources that said they're going to do this. And apparently, the powers that be in the government said, no, we're more worried about the West Bank, and they relocated troops there. They didn't think that it was serious. That's all that I know. But people, you should know that right now, Benjamin Netanyahu is actually even less popular than he was before October 7th because of the fact that his government failed dramatically failed on many counts, not just, by the way, that issue with security, but also the aftermath. People very angry that even here in public, just to say, to say to the Israeli public, I feel your pain. He failed. He and this government failed entirely on every level. The reason that Achim Laneshek, that the brothers in arms, became the focal point for the distribution of stuff to all those Israeli people, is because the government is doing it. That's all I can tell you. It's heartbreaking. It's really awful because I could go on for a while. Forgive me if I stuff in the rant, but France is a peace are further away than they've ever been. Remember that Israel was close to coming to an agreement with Saudi Arabia. That's one reason for happening. What happened is that Iran really doesn't want Israel to have a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia, and so forth. One reason that they made this happen, and we know that the Iranians are the supporters of Hamas, along with the Qataris. They made this happen so that peace agreement is not happening.
I think there's no number of times, and to make a comment about just my interpretation experience, talking to Israelis in the period of 5 decades. First trip I was with a particular university in South Carolina, and the peace had sort of been signed with Egypt, but hadn't been finalized. Okay, couldn't have been passed with Sinai and things like this. But our guide told us that our Greek stayed in he was up at a gallery with guard towers, guard.
I wasn't on those. Everybody does it.
I said, in Israel, the way we live here, we don't have borders. We have ceasefire lines. We're living in a situation, ceasefire lines, not established diplomatic peaceful borders.
Bob, you have a question?
Well, these people living next to what? He was basically living on a ceasefire line. Hamas has never recognized Israel. They're always at war with Israel. The last ceasefire from the war being so they broke it.
So remember that just to some extent, Israelis are a couple of generations away now from to statehood.
They're still living in a war zone
in the 40s, and it's been a quiet war zone for a long time. Other questions?
Do people who live on the border near Gaza typically have arms? Like, do they typically have own weapons?
I mean, I don't really know that. I know that when I went to Israel in 1987, my first trip there, I saw weapons a lot. And having gone to Israel many times since then, I was seeing them much less frequently. But on this trip, everywhere, everybody carrying rifles.
Why was it less frequent?
Sorry, okay. When I went back to Israel first, so I was there in 1987, and then I was there in 1999. I was there for a while, and it was much less common. You would see soldiers about, but less common to see other plainclothes civilians walking around with rifles. That's much all of a sudden, very much, and so remember 1999 was just before the second Intifada, where actually once again hopes were pretty high that there'd be to the point where Israelis were building projects in the West Bank because they thought that there were areas that would be part of both the Palestinian state and parts of Israel, and so the tremendous optimism other anything about anything you saw, any reaction? Again, I know this is hard to watch, but this is very real. I say that I don't want to have to bring this to you, but I actually think to some extent knows what happened. Because what we're hearing in the news is a very biased presentation of the facts on the ground. You don't hear in the news about Israel, you don't hear about Iraq, you don't hear about Hezbollah at all. Those things are all still there. And you don't hear about the pain that Israelis every now and then. But still very much, Israel is very much a nation state. I saw a poll either today or yesterday, that said that 90% of Israelis, trying to get 90% of Jews, let alone Israelis, to agree on anything. 90% of Israelis feel that after this hostage clause is over, that they have to go back to war and they have to Hamas. Other than, yeah. But
The war starts over.
oh yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. As I said earlier, Hamas doesn't have control over all the hostages. So even if they want to return more, they don't even know if they don't have. They don't have. They have some of them, but there are other groups that took hostages. I read a question.
So, 90% of Israelis, that 90% of Jewish Israelis, 90%. But what's the feeling on this?
Sorry, I didn't.
I'm not trying to crap you up, but I'm just saying, I've read different reports and, like, everything's filtered. But what's the working non-Jewish Israeli feeling? I might would run into hotels.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. I didn't actually speak with any Arabs, for example, when I was there. I do know that I've seen videos posted by Israeli Arabs that helped out, helping rescue people from like the music festival, who said, I can't even believe the disgusting nature of it. I saw one thing where I claimed to be Israeli Arab Muslim, and said, this is not Islam. It's not and so I think my sense is that many Israeli Arabs are also in agreement. And it's worth noting that there are a lot of Palestinians who don't like Hamas either. And by the way, all the leadership of all the Arab countries, even though they can't say so, like Europe, the Arab street erupting, none of them like Hamas. They're all afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Hamas is effectively a cousin of the Muslim Brotherhood, and all of those Islamist organizations are very bad for current Arab. So they all wanted to go away. They just can't say it.
You have a very handsome son, Rabbi. How are you doing? How are you doing now?
He's, thank God, he's fine. Look, his first reaction, surprised me when he said he had. So he finished his mandatory army service in March. I was called back on the morning of October 7th. He had to go bag, so he grabbed his bag and he went. His first reaction was like, really like that. I can't believe I have to. Like he was just getting his life started. He was taking a course in digital marketing. He was trying to get some work. Girlfriend, so not happy about having stuff. And now he's sort of accepting it as like, well, I got to do what my country asks me to do. Most of the time he's bored. He's just sitting there. He spends a lot of time. He's a medic, he's a doctor with it as well. So he spends a lot of time having. Go ahead.
So, what you said, you were in a lot of areas that at the time you were there, what was the fight?
Yeah, so
Did you hear word in the background while you were there?
We actually did not hear active. I didn't hear. Yeah, well, I mean, at that time that I was there, already the ground operation had already begun. So the level had gone down in terms of what's happening, at least in terms of rockets flying. I mean, I think I did not see any like smoke or anything like that. But we were, it was clear that we were entering a war zone. We had to pass a check to get into the Gaza envelope area, in which they came in. The army folks came in, they checked with us, they looked at all us, make sure we had a pass, we were ready. I can't explain that. I just know that
A lot of that happens at night.
it could be as well. I was only in that area. Yep. Other questions? Yes. No, it's absolutely not sustainable. My son told me that, well, we're taking bets. How long is it going to be? So some of us said the minimum wager is 2 months, and then the maximum 2 months already. Almost 2 months, and in the maximum probably a year. Let me throw this back at you. If anyone wants to try to put together a trip to Israel, I know I actually, a member, the daughter of one of our members, so, Lori Sales Klein, I saw is recently on Facebook, saw that she's on that she was there picking, persimmons. Because actually they know that they're, oh, by the way, if anyone saw pictures of cowboys, they were on my flight. Getting a picture of, one of them was waiting in line for the bathroom. So I found out he was from Arkansas, and he was going, it's funny because it was clear that he'd been coached by some organization, because he referred to the territories as America. So, but yes, in any case, look, if anyone here wants to take the initiative to help put together a national trip to Israel, to help do some kind of volunteer work on the ground, I'm game. Let me know. Maybe we'll make it happen. I don't have the bandwidth to do that myself. But there are flights going, and I heard from the American airlines is going to start up again. I don't know which one, United. So there will probably be more flights. But yes, the Israeli economy could use it, and
about that.
yes.
I've seen lots of stuff on TV. Can you just imagine what the reception was? They just wanted to level everything.
Well, I want to continue to be careful. But I'm saying that they will level anything. The goal of Israel is not to kill civilians. Okay? The goal is to take out Hamas. And okay, now none of us are there on the ground. We don't know how this goes. We hope that they are. They say that they are still making leaflets. They can make phone calls before they remember. Of course, they told everybody in the north to go south. They did try to create a humanitarian corridor. Some of the people that were trying to prevent them from going south were actually Hamas and Hezbollah. God, remember, those organizations, those terrorist organizations, want there to be more casualties. They want the body count to be high because they want Westerners to think that Israel is killing Palestinian civilians. That is not what Israel is doing. Israel is not carrying out some kind of genocide. The very idea is, I understand why some misguided people understand that to be the case. That is not what's going on. What's going on is that Israel is trying to take out the Hamas leadership and as many fighters as possible. And unfortunately, it's very hard to do in a very densely populated urban. It's something which is very important for us to remember and share with our friends.
There's so much about the hospital.
Yes. There's plenty of proof that those hospitals are used by Hamas as headquarters. That's undeniable. And the world keeps saying, well, we're not sure Israel is this. For sure, that is because otherwise, where are they? They're not in the rubble of the other buildings that have been destroyed. Okay? They know that Israel is not going to bomb hospitals deliberately, and they're hiding there, and they're being passive with weapons and people. They have found hostages in the city.
Actually, that Shifa Hospital, big one, where they got the security cameras, they had pictures on dragging some of the hostages.
Of course they do. Of course they do. And I'm sorry to say, look, folks, it's painful to read the American press because
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
unfortunately, the Israeli government not saying some very nice things as well.
There's no question. And it's war. It's war. And let's face it, and war is ugly and it's bad. And we want war to be over. The only way that we're going to ultimately save lives in the region is by eliminating Hamas. One last question.
More about it.
Yeah.
We're trying to politics. About as good as helping
Yeah.
Israel. So on a conference call the other day about that's probably just yellow candle jump. So it was months away.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they may not be able to ship them this year because they're made in Israel. Their factories don't exist. There's no ships leaving for it. And there's some that are in a warehouse here, but I mean the ripple effect of the economy. Think, we just do something with the yellow candle. I mean, you get Judaica, whatever. But COVID, when the economy stops, like really getting stuff out, even if this product can't leave on ships to get out of the country, I think countries can take product. you know, there's nowhere for people to, go on with their life.
Listen, there's much more we could talk about. I mean, I'm just gonna keep saying, I don't know that I made this abundantly clear in many things that I've said, that I'm fundamentally optimistic. That I still hold out some, hope for a glimmer of future with peace. And I hold, as we all should, the sanctity of life above everything else. And this is a very difficult thing. I'm glad you're all here this evening to hear these things, see some of the images. And I have to remind all of us that even in the context, start off by saying, I was reminded, even in the context of really horrible, atrocious role that and I think the response and the resilience of the Israeli spirit is something that I call when I was there. I just something that I was thinking about to share with you when I was on the Institute, which is a program of Jewish and Israeli studies. I was there living in Iran, out in the desert. Exactly. That's the proper response when you hear somebody was living in Iran. I lived there for 7 months in 1999, and it's really from nowhere, as my mother would say. And one thing, one of the counselors, one of my madrichot on my program, a woman named Sharon, she lost her daughter, or I believe she would say on her Facebook, the daughter was murdered on October 7th. And her response, I reached out to her, I sent her a message. Hey, listen, you remember me? I was 24 years ago, and rabbi now, and I do this. I help counsel people who are reading. And do you want to talk? So, thanks, Rabbi. Not right now. I've thrown myself into volunteering and helping other people right now to deal with myself. And so that is a response that many have. We can only hope for a better future. We can perhaps even work for it, because I think that we still have to be around for a long time and still pray for that. So I want to thank you all once again for being here this evening. I can figure out thank you all for joining us on Zoom as well. I hope that you could hear and see, and if you have any questions, come in.